Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate Investor Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
So in today's episode, we have Bari Tessler. She is a financial therapist, and she's so beautifully connected finances and therapy together. And what I think you'll get the most out of today's episode, she shares so many great nuggets about your relationship to money, how you go through money healing, what your money identity is, and how important this is when it comes to our relationship to investing. Money is at the core of it. So I think you'll really enjoy today's episode.
And also for us parents, right? We want to break the cycle of that relationship we have with money that we got from our parents and they got for their parents. So how can we do this in a very powerful and meaningful way? Because sometimes we do things that we don't know we're doing. So she encouraged us to think about it in a way that we will propel a more healthy and savvy relationship with money. So the children that are coming don't need to deal with the same thing. They're going to deal with different things, but not the same things that you and your parents are dealing with.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Investor Show, where our mission is to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. Right, Andressa?
That is correct. Whatever balance means to you.
Yes. I always steal that from her and I usually say it, but then I gave her a chance this time to say it. Thanks. So welcome back to our show. We so appreciate you coming back on this journey with us. And it is a journey. So excited about today's guest, Bari Tessler. She has so many amazing things to share when it comes to your relationship with money, which we know money is like the key to it all in real estate investing. And so we're excited to have you here, Bari. Thank you so much for making time to connect with us and connect with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me here. And I love that you say that you get to define that on your own terms, right? That's so important, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it really differs, right? From woman to woman. And that's, yes, who we're serving. So we're going to jump into Bari's story and just really great nuggets she's going to share with us when it comes to money, which is probably the biggest topic, right? We all have and well, a lot of pieces around. So we're excited to jump in there with you. But we always do each week. We really like to get connected to all of you amazing women listening. And again, we always like to say, you're on this journey with us. This is a journey. It's not a destination. Financial freedom's you're not trying to get somewhere and then you're done. It's literally always evolving and really we're evolving with you. So that's really what we always like to share. So Andressa and I like to share a quick tip, something coming up for us, and then share that with all of you. So Andressa, I have this week, correct?
You do.
I'm checking because you usually are a little more organized than I. But anyway, so here's what I have for you today or this week. And at the time of recording, we're in the summer. And every day before my kids go to camp, I put sunblock on them. And it's like, a pain than you know what. But regardless, we have this whole system, right? They go in the garage and Sammy starts putting it everywhere. And then she starts like rubbing it on her dolls. And then my son kind of gets it, but kind of doesn't. And he just does it really quick. So he's starting to do it himself. Anyway, it's literally like a 15-minute process. So I'm just like, what does this have to do with real estate investing in women? I'm going to get to that.
No, I'm just picturing everything that's going on. It's like
it's just like crazy. Even during the year, it's crazy, but summer camp is even more intense. You got to remember, a lot more things. I don't know why, but it seems a little more intense in my head. So I got, the checklist. So the last thing is sunblock. Anyway, let them off. My husband took them today and I had like literally 5 minutes, get myself a cup of coffee and jump into my day. And I got to thinking about the power of sunblock in the summer. Obviously, it is warm and you have to protect yourself and protect your kiddos. But then I thought about it. I'm like, mentally, do I put sunblock on, And I'm like, prayer and meditation. But what am I doing each day to like protect myself from what? Not the sun. Obviously, here's a metaphor, but protect myself from my own limitations, my own, and something my family and I started was a family intention. So we go around and share our intention for the day. And that's been really helpful. Some days I don't want to do it, but lately I've, what was my intention today is just to speak positive words and to think positively, which most of the time you'd think, wow, Liz, you seem like really positive. That's probably easy for you, but not all the time. And so that was my intention for today. And why I say, where's the connection with sunblock is that you need to put your own like mental sunblock on, each day. What is that? What does that look like for you? Prayer, meditation, and whatever you do, are you doing it routinely? Because sometimes we do things when you don't think about them and then you don't even feel better after them. I don't know about you, but it's like, you have to actually think about what you're doing and like feel good about what you're doing. And that intention part really, I did some prayer, I did some meditation, and we did our intention for the day as a family before the kids went off, and I did the sunblocking. And I really felt like, yeah, I'm bringing positivity every conversation I have. And that means I have to show up positive and not think negatively. So that's what I have for you this week.
I see that as like this bubble, right? Not the bubble to protect us from living life or experience different things, but the bubble to have our boundaries. Like this is my boundary in terms of who I want to have friendships with. If those folks, I have a thing with people that have like this excuse. Anything that happens to them, it's like somebody else's fault or something like that. And in the past, I was more like, let's talk through it. Let me explain to you it. But it's a matter of like, okay, I'll tell you once, twice, but we're not going to have this conversation all over. And so it's like putting our mental sunblock on, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever that means to you, whatever it fulfills you and your life.
Yes. And we need to do that daily. So without further ado, Bari, thank you so much for taking time to be with us here today, and just love your background and what you are committed to. And I know you do a lot around the art of money. And again, Bari, what I love about how we're having you on and the women that are listening is it's not just going to be like tactical real estate investing strategies. We do have that, and we do a lot of that, right? Because that's our core. But our 3 pillars are business, self-care, and real estate investing. And the art of money is so connected to all 3 of those pillars. Because if you don't have a great relationship with money, how are you going to invest in real estate, right? That's always the question mark in my head. So thanks for being on. And, we always like to ask the ladies we interview a little bit about their background, obviously, but what propelled them? We usually typically ask what propelled them into the area of investing. But for you, what propelled you into the work that you're doing to create the community and the work that you do around supporting all different types of people with their relationship with money?
Yes, I never thought I'd be a financial therapist. And when people ask me, I'm on the airplane at a conference, what do you do? And I say, I'm a financial therapist. They cock their head and then take a moment and go, oh, wow, my mom needs that, or my, husband needs that, or my daughter, or my son, or I need that, So I, originally when I was growing up, I wanted to be 3 things: a solid gold dancer, which tells you all I'm in my 50s. Okay. If you know what that is. The second is a businesswoman. So when I was 12 years old, my career report was, I wanted to be a businesswoman. I didn't know what kind, but my dad was in real estate. So, okay. Yeah. And so I wanted to be in real estate with him. And then the third was I asked to go to therapy when I was 16. Wow. Third was, become a psychotherapist. So solid gold dancer, some kind of businesswoman, possibly real estate. And third was psychotherapist. And so it wasn't until I did my undergrad and history, it still was like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and then I moved to Israel for a year to take a break and to find myself. And when I was there is when I thought I made up dance movement therapy. I was like, I grew up dancing. So, I wanted to be some kind of dance therapist, and I thought I made it up. And then I moved to Jerusalem and soon learned there's entire graduate programs in somatic body-centered psychotherapy, what used to be called more dance movement therapy. So at the age of 24, I moved back to the States, Boulder, Colorado, and started my, master's degree in somatic psychology. And my topics, I thought I'd be working with couples around intimacy, relationships, sexuality, body, food with women, and death and grief. So those were the topics that I was exploring. Right? There's nothing about money that I've said yet. And, that was, you had to do a lot of coursework. You had to do a lot of internship work. We had to write a 150-page thesis. And then my student loan came due. And it was that moment that, it was that big epiphany of, number one, how am I going to pay this back? I have a master's degree and I'm making $11 an hour. $11 an hour, my late 20s with a master's degree. as a, social worker in the mental health field. What is my relationship to money? Do I have a healthy one? Do I have a savvy one? What is it? What have I learned? It became so clear. It was such an obvious missing piece in my life, but then especially in my training as a therapist. We did not talk about money, not even like, how do you work with couples? If, on the surface, fighting about money is one of the biggest reasons couples get divorced, right? It's really the deeper stuff, and we don't know how to communicate about what's really going on and the deeper themes, which we can talk about. But also, how do you start your own private practice? How do you do the bookkeeping? How do you set your fees? How do you, talk to your clients about their relationship to money? It was such an obvious missing piece that the light bulbs went on. And I either thought I'm going to run away and like travel the world and not pay this student loan back, which, was a silly option, but it was just an option. I like to put options on the table. And then the other option was, what I do with everything is I'm going to face it. And I'm going to take it on one of those scary big topics and learn everything that I can. And I wound up learning bookkeeping first, and then having a transitional bookkeeping business for other therapists, coaches, artists, and contractors. And so I did that for a few years. And I always say, I learned more about people's relationship to money, their spending patterns, their values, what's important to them, how they relate to money. And they all just threw their bookkeeping at me. They didn't even know.
That was a wonderful study case. Because then
it was.
You see from behind the scenes and gather and look at the data and say, wow, there's a pattern here. That was like preparing you.
It was,
right?
It was, but I was just following the breadcrumbs, or I like to call them the chocolate crumbs, and that was between the ages of 28 to 32. And then at 32 is when I decided to put it all together. My past training as a therapist with bookkeeping systems that I surprisingly fell in love with, and, money management tools and practices that I was coming up with, because all the traditional money books, they were good. And they taught me the basics, paying down debt, living within your means, basic budgets, basic investments. But, as a therapist, for me, I was aware money is so emotional for myself and everyone around me. And I needed to come up with a lot more than just the basics of paying down debt and investing. I wanted to really help people understand what their money emotions are, their money story. So long story short, to complete, when this is 20 years ago. So I'm having my 20th year anniversary as a financial therapist, right? And then a decade before as training as a therapist. So in 2001, I started my first tiny little groups, teaching my methodology in my living room in an apple orchard in California. I don't live there any longer. And I taught 10 people over and over and over until it grew to 20 people, and then eventually 50 people. And I used to teach it in 6-week classes, then 9-week, then 3 months, then 6 months. And for the last 9 years, I've been teaching a year-long program with about 500 students from around the world each year who go through my program. So that's a little
awesome.
Bit. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you talked a lot, the research that I did around you talked a lot about money healing and like untangling all your past. To a lot of people, it sounds daunting because they're like, I don't want to touch that. Let's just pretend it doesn't exist. It is what it is. Well, I am on my whatever, 30s, 40s, 50s, you name it. And can I change anything right now or not? But I encourage you guys to be open-minded and do the work with us. And I know that we're not going to do all the work over here, but where can we start looking at it? Is there like a step that we can look to even identify what is our relationship with
you bet. You bet. And number one, I want to say that most of us did not receive a complete financial education from grade school on up, right? So everyone, please know that. So most of us are learning this as adults. My community is 25 to 75 years old. And most, if not all the people who come to me have done a lot of work on themselves. They're smart, they're savvy, they've matured, developed in every area of life. And money's kind of the last frontier for them. So they still feel they're a teenager around money. And some of my folks feel they're not even a teenager. They're still an infant, right? That's one thing. The second thing is that my methodology starts with money healing. Then we move to money practices and money maps. So I'm going to give you a few tools, but I just want folks to know there's a lot of really practical steps that come, in the next phases. And I teach it in my book. I teach it in my year-long program. It's a journey. You've already said it's a lifelong journey of fine-tuning every year. So step 1 or 2 in money healing is a few things. One, the first tool that I give when people say, how do I have a healthier, savvier relationship to money? Before I say learn a bookkeeping system, which is number 2, I say start practicing body check-ins. Now, what's a body check-in? Some people already know it. They do a meditation practice, or they have a yoga practice, or they check in and center. A body check-in is just getting out of your head, which is not so easy for some of us, and checking in with our body during all the daily money interactions that we have. So when we're going to go online and look at our numbers and see what our balances are. And I just looked this morning, and there might be a teeny bit of fraud. That hasn't happened in a few years. It happens, right? Even, with everything in place. So, I when you're going online to check your numbers, when you're checking your balances, when you're going online to do some online shopping, when you're going to have a money conversation with your spouse, with your kids, with your parents, with your clients, and so on. So body check-in is really, it's something you can do before you're gonna go look at your numbers or bookkeeping or have the money conversation. It can happen during it, in the heat of the moment. You remember, oh my God, I'm having some really strong emotions right now. And or after as a debriefing, like, how did that go? What worked? What can I change? So a body check-in is really just stopping and pausing. It could be 5 seconds. It could be 30 seconds. Checking in physically what's going on in your body. Legs crossed, legs open, shoulders up, shoulders down, jaw tight, jaw loose. Just noticing physically what's happening. Second, any sensations. So any movement, butterflies, tightness in your body, just notice. The third thing is, what is the emotion? So the same set of emotions that come up in every area of life come up around money as well. Shame, guilt, anger, anxiety, sadness, jealousy, to joy, excitement, hope, so, and everywhere in between. And even a lot of people are talking more about fight, flight, freeze, having financial fight, flight, freeze, really strong responses to being audited by the IRS, for example, or, so checking in with your emotions, and we can talk about that more. That's step 3 in the little body check-in, just what emotion or emotions are present. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2, sometimes, I'm feeling excited, but also really nervous to look at my money. When people come in, they start doing money work. They're like, I'm kind of terrified to look at this, but I'm also feeling hopeful. Right. So and then to complete, I ask people to check in, where's their breath? So is their breath like up in their throat? They're kind of hyperventilating at the car dealership, or is it in their chest or down in their belly? And then I always end it with, what's one little adjustment? Can I lower my shoulders? Can I loosen my jaw? Can I uncross my legs? Can I put the soles of my feet on the ground? Can I get my breath deeper in my body? So the body check-in serves many purposes, but it is step 1 in money healing. And it's step 1 in how to have a healthier, savvy relationship to money from a financial therapist perspective, right? It helps you stop, pause, bring more awareness to what's happening. It can help calm you down. Not always, and not at first, right? And then eventually you can start to notice, like, what is the set of emotions that comes up for me? What do I do when I'm going to go have a money conversation? What does my freak out look like? And then that leads to understanding what your money story and patterns are. And the money story and patterns came from our childhood, right? Any therapist will tell you, right? And I don't want us to go back and hang out in therapy forever, but go back and pick up some of the pieces. What did you learn from your parents or grandparents around money? What was positive? What was negative? Conscious, unconscious? What do you do that's just like mom? Do you remember, do you have an image of her paying bills at the dining room table anxiously, but is mom also generous? So where are you like her? Where have you rebelled against her? Where are you trying to find your own relationship to money? So I'll complete, but a money story is just made up of childhood memories what we learned from our parents, grandparents, our lineage, the socioeconomic class we grew up in, siblings, and my sibling, I'm the oldest, but my younger sister and brother, are way more frugal than me. They were saving at age 5. And I was known as the spender only because I liked many things. I had a lot of desire. I wanted to buy my mom the ring at the school fair. I wanted the candy. I just wanted,
That.
So, but even in the same family, right? And so there's so much to go back to understand what you learned, where you're reacting, where you're rebelling, where you're doing things completely different because you received or did not receive certain things growing up. And then I think it's really at 25. I mean, some 20-year-olds, but 25 and up, you can really start bringing more awareness and understanding to what your money story was, shining the light on your current patterns around earning and spending and saving, how that's working. And then you start looking at, can I rewrite a new money story? Can I change?
Right.
Can I make shifts? And you can. Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me because, financial advisors, it's just like, to me, right? Black and white. Let's see where things are. And I think that a lot of people feel a lot of shame because they didn't, whatever circumstance happened. Have you found that during your practice, right? Because I feel you're combining two beautiful, I don't know how things, I'll just call things, two beautiful things with psychology and your relationship with money. And I don't know if you've also faced the same issues as therapists, right? Because I always think that if you are still healthy, you go to therapist. You go and you if you're really sick and you're refusing to go, is because things are really, really challenging to say. So for folks that are having money challenges, do you feel that a lot of people that really, really need help don't go because they feel shame? And if they're hearing us right now, how can they overcome that and not feel that by going to ask for help, they're really admitting that they fail?
Okay. Well, I mean, most everyone has money issues in my world, from all different economic levels, from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. So I've had high earners who weren't looking at their numbers, and so they weren't saving, and many of them were going into debt. But my God, were they really good earners? They just won't slow down to sit with a bookkeeper or, and really look at their numbers and plan things out a bit better. I have my under earners who, really are working on their relationship to under earning and the relationship to value and self-worth. And, it's not connected to the numbers, but at the same time, we need to price things, and create business models. So, I mean, in my world, everyone has money issues, from small to big. It could be, I just don't know how to work on my credit score, pay down debt. It could be very practical things, but it could be I'm going through a big life transition, or I received an inheritance, and you would think that would be a lovely thing, but that isn't for everyone, depending on who they received it from, or they'd rather have the person alive than passed away. Or so everyone comes to me with a level of money shame, and money shame just means I'm not okay. I don't do this the right way. I'm stupid around money. Everyone else learned this but me. If I came from this family, I would have learned it. If I came from that family, I would have learned it. And I have, I have people across the board. So shame is just one of the very first big emotions that comes up. I'm not okay. And yes, there's layers of, and I should know this, even though, as I go back to earlier, we weren't taught this. And I'm super savvy, or I'm, high earning, I'm in real estate, or I'm in the corporate world and I have this great job. I just think I should know how to do this by myself, or I should do it. I like to do things by myself, or I'm embarrassed to ask, or I've heard so many different reasons of why people don't ask for support. So shame is one of the very first emotions that people, it's like a cloak that they're wearing. And so, for those folks, I would say, go read a book, go read my blog, and start asking yourself. I have tons of questions in my book. And you can start journaling with one question. What did you learn from your mom growing up? Or what did you learn about money from your dad or your grandma? And how are you different from your siblings? And just starting to take a peek. I like the word peek because people are terrified to even look at their numbers, and I have an article on, are you terrified to look? Let's just peek, so, and I'm a big then how do you do that? Some people will do that alone, off in their own corner first. Other people, I would get calls originally and they would just ask me questions. And then, I got this the other day, Bari, I saw one of your ads back in 2006 in a yoga magazine. I'm finally ready. Wow. So, I put out a weekly newsletter on a different money topic. So start peaking, but here's the other thing is that there is reaching out for help. There's bookkeepers, there are accountants, financial planners, estate planners. They all have different specialties. They all come from different backgrounds. And, what is their experience and background, and how do you hire someone? You don't add an entire financial team at the same time. You pick one, and it's scary to have someone else looking at your numbers. Many people feel naked, just utterly naked. I'm showing you my cards. I'm showing you my life, but if you have a good teacher who's also a bookkeeper and a trainer, and you get a good referral from someone. So you start slow. This is why from day one, I started doing groups. I do love private therapy, and I work with women and couples and women who own their own businesses. But I just opened that up after 5 years, and I opened up, 20 slots, let's say. I like working in groups because you even with 10 people, you walk in the room. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. You may still feel the shame. It's brave to walk into a room. Now it's all online. So that's easier, right? You can be a little more anonymous. But here's the thing. If you are willing to share anything about your money story, your childhood, your current patterns, your challenges, then that represents at least 25 other people in the room, if not 50. And they may have come from the same background. They may have come up from a completely different background. So some folks like to share a lot in the private forum. Other people sit quietly and they just watch and they read what other people share. And when someone else shares, then, it's wonderful to watch and witness them. And then, so we are unshaming together, and we're learning we're not alone. And on and on and on. So that's what the other thing about groups too is that it's more, it's more reasonably priced. So, it's private therapy is mostly middle class on up, unless you have sliding scale slots or you're willing to work with lower income folks. And that's another reason why I did groups from day one, is I wanted to make it as accessible as I possibly could. And because we learn so much about ourselves, we may see someone else and go, oh, that's my mom. Now I understand it more, or that's my brother, and we're so different, or that's my husband, or that's my wife, and I can talk about couples in a moment. So that's a little I would say start reading the Art of Money book, go to other people who are talking about money and just start peeking and maybe journaling and taking it on your walks or when you exercise and starting to think about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great suggestions. I love the concept of peaking. That's I think that's a really nicely said word. And I'm like, I gotta take that into my own life. I love what you're saying, Bari. A lot of the women that come to us and a lot of the women in our community are all wanting to create financial freedom or have created financial freedom. Either or, right? There's women in all different stages of investing. Toe in the water all the way through. They've created their financial freedom roadmap. And now they're just like, what do I do with my time? But your money story and your money relationship to money evolves as you evolve, right? And so I'm sure you see that. I'm curious, the question I have for you is, I'm curious how important it is to be to know your money story before you say get involved in investing. Or, in some ways for me, I figured out my money story as I started to invest, right? So then I was faced with different things, and all the good things I learned as a kid served me. And then it was time to let go. I grew up as a saver. I grew up very much someone who, we weren't going on extravagant, vacations. It wasn't like a ton of disposable income. My dad was a school teacher, right? He was a full-time school teacher. And that's a great living, but still you have to look at, okay, where do I bring this from? So as I started getting into investing and in our business, my own stuff came up, right? My husband's stuff came up, but it was like through the process, right? It wasn't like we got that in check, good, we're good, and now let's go invest. It didn't happen like that for us. And I'm curious, I'm just thinking in my head, the one listening are all interested in investing, right? Or they're current investors and they're scaling. But that money story can really limit us as we grow, especially as we grow, and we have more of that disposable income. So I'm curious, Bari, for the women listening, they may not have shame. They maybe have moved through that shame process. I'm sure everyone has to move through it. And they're looking to expand, right? They're looking for that abundance, that prosperity. And, they know they still have some old stories playing in the background. So once they've done some of this body work, which I think is such a smart approach, what's like the next level? What's the, as they shift and move and evolve, do they need to continually be mindful of this, right? Because then it's like, I have the money, I don't want to spend the money now, right? So that's a different problem of, well, I didn't have the money and I didn't want to spend it because I'm frugal, but no, I have the money and I don't want to spend it. Different problem, right? Different situation. So, but it evolves. So I guess my question to you is, what would you say to that woman listening that, needs to keep evolving her money story, if you will? How does she keep evolving as she evolves in her business and in her investments?
Yeah, I love this question. So this is about financial identity, right? And it's a lifelong journey hopefully it is, right? And some people want to be done, have their money thing all figured out, or think that they can get to a certain amount of savings or investments and not have any money emotions anymore, not have any life curveballs. Life is still going to happen. You've already said that. So we can become great planners, which I love, and work with financial planners and, have that all in place, but life's still going to happen, right? Someone's going to die. Things are going to change. Divorce is going to happen, right? But so it is a lifelong journey of continually looking at your relationship to money every year, your financial identity, and updating it. But there's so much more to the money healing, and I'm going to answer your question. So, checking in with your body is one part of it, understanding your emotions that come up. And, shame is maybe the first one, but then it can move into, lots of other, positive emotions as well. And then there's pieces around forgiveness. Some people have things around the past that they need to forgive, whether it's with their family, their parents did not know how to teach them financial literacy or emotional literacy, right? And you can have a lot of feelings around that, or you didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. And so, you are starting your own business, or, you've moved to a whole next level. So there's stuff to work around that. There's forgiveness, there's completions from the past, but then I call it ritual, but it's also just stepping into new financial identity. So it's hard when your cash flow is low, but for some of us, as we start earning more, we have similar issues that come up, but meaning we all of a sudden have just a lot of energy. And we're moving into a next level. Whenever I would go to speak to a larger audience, I would get scared and nervous and say, well, is it my body telling me to not do this? No, my body's telling me we're going to take a leap, and it's scary and exciting. It's all of the above, and just hang in there. So yes, whenever people fill a course or make the deal, or, and get an influx of, additional resources and money, then that's a whole moment. Do I trust myself to spend this well? Do I trust myself to save? How can I steward this money? What do I do? So much can come up for women there in that moment. The money's come in. Do I just tuck it away and, let it sit in the state savings? Because some women, because of their past, they want to just get rid of it as quickly as possible, right? That wasn't you. You were a saver for early on. So I had to work with my tendencies early on to want to spend.
Yeah.
Right. And I had to slow myself down. I'm going to tuck it away and see how that feels. And then for a lot of high earners, then you get to really map out and plan what you want to do with this money and making sure it's in alignment with your values. And, that's the exciting part, but that can bring up issues for some women.
Absolutely.
And then that's where you do want to sit down with a financial coach or a financial planner. And they are more black and white, but a lot of my financial coaches, they sit down with you, they look at your values, they look at the numbers, what phase of life you're in, kids, no kid, like, what do you want? What are your dreams? And financial planners do that too, but they'll just give you a lifelong budget and say, stick to this, and then a lot of people can't because their own emotions and money stories gets in the way. I'll tell one short story. She was a really high earner, but she was in the corporate world. So she was working crazy hours, right? So that's always interesting. But she was a corporate accountant and worked her way up. So she had a really high salary and she kept getting a really clear financial plan and then wasn't sticking to it. And when she read in my money practice section, so I need to make this all fun and creative because this area of life used to be terribly boring for me. And I was like, I'm not going to have a relationship with money. It's boring. It's not exciting. And so from day one, I was like, well, how can I make this more creative and interesting? And I saw socially responsible, values-based investing, 20 some years ago. And I thought, I want values-based bookkeeping. And so it seems like such a little thing, but I have people sit down and redo their bookkeeping, even if they're working with a bookkeeper, and they list out all their values and they rename all their categories. Now, this is for their personal finances, not their business. Accountants would understand, but when they want to figure out your tax deductions, it could be a little confusing. So you sit down and you rename all of your categories so that when you sit down at your bookkeeping, you get to see what you're doing in your life, what you're dreaming, what you're cooking up, what you're creating, what you're making happen. And renaming, rent, mortgage, you can't really change that, but it could be home, it could be sanctuary, it could be love shack. I've seen people rename a debt from that damn debt to what was really going on in my life. Oh, it was a huge trip to Italy that changed the course of my life. Or, oh, that was a health crisis that my wife went through. And she's survived cancer. And we have these medical bills and debt. And I've had people rename little things like that. And the simple renaming, and this is not for everyone, makes such a difference. So to go back, it's a lifelong journey. Some people do the financial identity update every month. Like, what's going on with me? Where do I feel my money? Where are my money ceilings? What's the amount that I've never made more or beyond? And some people, it could be a yearly amount. For some people, it could be just planning out 6 months at a time. It could be I know you all get windfalls. It's different for me, I was like, I need monthly income, and I need to have that for a year. Where back in the day it was, can I just have monthly income, and then maybe 3 months. So there's lots of little ways to update your financial identity. From setting your goals, from checking into your own limitations. The last thing I'll just say is that boundaries, which was named at the very beginning, is when I'm working with under earners, trying to get them to up level, we talk about boundaries all the time. So know your yeses, know your nos, or how about know all your nos, and then pick 3 yeses of what you're able to do, right now, and go for that. And so there's a lot of little things around knowing your boundaries, knowing your nos, knowing your yeses, and that helps with just updating your financial identity as well.
Thinking forward, right? We all go through our money story and everything. And then many of us are parents. And the thing that a lot of parents have the fear of is that they're going to continue the cycle and they're not going to break the cycle. And I don't know, in your opinion, if the fear is already saying, okay, so you're focusing on the fear, therefore you're going to propel this, or focus on your reframing. I don't know if that's the word that you use, but reframing or updating, improving your money identity, and they will see that and then create a new cycle. So for the parents that are having those struggles in their mind, what would you say?
Okay, this is, you see, I have a lot of answers. Like I can't just say one thing. So, and I'm going to talk about couples for a second and parents. So I have so many mother-daughter, father-daughter teams that come to me now. And so the daughters might be in their 30s and their moms are in their 50s or 60s. Okay. And they're doing this work for the very first time together. So that makes me incredibly happy. It's never too late. It's never too late to do this work. And we all can change and shift and learn, again, financial literacy and emotional literacy, both of those things, which are left out of our, schooling, our upbringing, which is what my financial therapy methodology is something that we can learn well into our adult life. But our kids are watching us. They're watching everything. And so I would say, start doing your own money work. So even with a couple, sometimes I say, you each do your own money work first, separately, because I've never seen two people come together and have the same patterns around earning and spending and saving. They usually polarize. They're usually in moments horrified by the way the other person does it and has that moment where they see the credit card bill and how the other person spends and they go running to them, while they're in the shower or right before bed. I've done all of that. It's not, it usually doesn't work. But so couples, they have to learn about their own money story and their own strengths and their own challenges. So we all have strengths around money. We all have challenges around money. No one person knows how to do money, the right way or the only way. And that usually happens in a couple where one person has the finance degree or accounting degree. They think they're the smarty pants. The other person feels stupid. But I've worked with so many couples to know, the guy with his fabulous spreadsheets, that may work for him, but the woman may want to learn her own bookkeeping system. She may want to learn Mint or Quickbooks or YNAB and find her own system,
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't know everything, in his accounting classes, he didn't learn about money emotions and he has them, even if it's really black and white for him. So, and he's not the best teacher. I'm saying male, female here, but this could be female couples. It could be, right, any dynamic. And so there's that. And so I don't mean to say all this to make it overwhelming. Step one could be, there are some great money books for kids. I've been asked to write one and my son's only 12. And I say, when he's 18 or maybe when he's 21, and I have this more figured out, but it's just baby steps. There's good books by Brad Klontz and Beth Kobliner, and they all have great books on money and kids and just the basics. But when you start learning about your money story, you can just start watching your kids. I'd say the biggest thing is just bring your kids in the money conversation. As Liz, you were already saying, you sit down as a family to set intention. So our family sits down to talk about where we want to donate at times, or when we're making a big decision. Our son was in Montessori school, private school for a long time. And we were like, well, what else could we do with those funds? We could go on 2 trips to Europe or, and we talk that through with our son. And, it's an ongoing journey. The last thing that I'm kind of proud of is we've had trouble with allowance and figuring that out. And there's no right way. You have to see the personality of your kid, what works for them, what works for your family. But we are finally doing allowance again, where our son needs to keep his room clean. And by the end of the week, if it's clean, even vacuumed and, no food, he's pretty slobby like I was. By the end of the week, then he's 12, he gets $12 and I pay, I send him via PayPal. And the other day he asked me for the money and I sometimes have to ask him to clean a few times. So I thought I was being very clever and said, no, you need to ask me a few more times. And so my husband thought that was fabulous. And I was like, he's going to be in therapy later on in his life, talking about how my mom made me ask 4 times, because I have to ask him 4 times. But anyway, we are now, successfully doing allowance, keeping the room clean. Where in the past, he was like, it's my room. Why do I have to keep it clean? But we needed some incentive for him to contribute to the household, and, and then, yes, of course, we're happy to give you allowance. So I think that, as I was saying, I have, 60-year-old parents coming in with their 30 or 40-year-old adult kids, exploring their relationship to money for the first time. You can do it at any point. You start slow, they're watching. The next thing I'll just say is that learning a bookkeeping system, and that's the next thing I'm going to teach my son, is how to use Mint or QuickBooks. Now that he's 12, going to be 13, and so excited. So there's new things that you can learn. And as you're learning, you can share them and just don't be afraid to talk about money. But yeah, there is a lot of don't say too much, but don't say too little. Find that middle place in between.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it continues to evolve as your kids get older, right? I mean, I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. I know, Andressa, what's Lorenzo, 6? I think he's 6, right?
Yes.
6, yeah. So I was right. He's a year younger than Zach. And it's like, the conversations are different now than they were when Zach was 3. And now he wants to earn money. And what does that look like? And it's, you got to keep up leveling your game as a parent and keep doing things differently and not figure it all out yourself, because this doesn't work. So I love all your suggestions. Love all the concepts you're sharing with us today. And the women listening in our audience, where can they learn more about you, Bari?
So my website, baritessler.com, is the best place. And I do put out weekly a new newsletter on a different money topic. Like, here's an interview with a student loan expert. Here's my thoughts on debt. Here's the antidote to money shame. So when you join my community list, you'll get a 7-day little taste of the Art of Money methodology, and then you'll be in my community list. And what else? I'm on Instagram. That's my favorite. I'm on Facebook, and go get my book. It's in hardcover, my favorite, paperback. It's now on Audible. That took me it took 4.5 years to make the Audible version happen, but it's there now. So go enjoy the book and go from there.
Awesome. And all this information you guys can find on our show notes. So you don't need to rush to get a pencil and paper. You're going to have all the links on our show notes. Now we're going to transition to our fabulous 3 questions. The first one, Bari, is what's the most transformational book you ever read?
Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust. And his journey through that and his ability and capacity to find hope and joy for humanity after that's it.
Awesome.
That's it. Yeah.
The second question is, what's the most powerful routine that you do to create a financially free and balanced life, whatever balance means to you?
One? Oh my God. Well, the body check-ins and to, really learning QuickBooks early on. And, I always joke and say I needed a box of tissue and dark chocolate, lots of dark chocolate, and a really good hand holder. So for me, early on, it's evolved, but being able to track my numbers and learn about cash flow and learn how to read those reports, which were so scary. I learned everything about my business and how to plan and do projections and budgeting. So I would say that was the tool that allowed me to plan, dream, feel confident, know my numbers, know what's going on. That's been one of my top tools over the years.
Great. And the last question is, which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
You know what? I'm just going to be simple here. And I'm going to just go with my mom because we've had such a journey of, being really close in my teenage years. She called me quite a nickname that I won't say because it was a swear word, but she in my teenage years. We've really found our way. She's 75, and her and I talk about everything. and all the money stuff. And I call her up and I say, so did your parents own their own house when they moved to Chicago? And, tell me about the businesses that they had in Russia where my family, all escaped from. And I ask, tell me the birth story again. Like I call my mom almost every day, every few days, and ask her questions like this. And she's very generous and she's very frugal. So we're, and I'm different than her, but I'm going to say just my relationship with my mom and how it's evolved and where we are today in such a good place.
That's amazing. Bari, thank you so much for coming on our show and sharing all your amazing, amazing ideas and tips, because the money is a big one when it comes to investing. And I don't think enough people that are investing do focus on it. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom. We appreciate you and appreciate your time so much.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.